Yesterday's latest immigration figures set a new record. 1.2 million people came to the UK. The net figure, when those emigrating is subtracted, now stands at 606,000. A record, yes, but there is another way of describing it. The greatest act of political betrayal in this country's recent history. Millions voted for Brexit primarily to reduce the massive numbers coming to Britain. And let's not muddy the issue in the way the Tories are now seeking to do by claiming that people voted simply for a system of national control. Millions saw the referendum as their one chance to vote on this, to make their voices heard on an issue on which, despite its country changing enormity, they had never ever been consulted. But it's not just Brexit voters who have been deceived. Consistently, around 60% of the public consider immigration to be too high, a figure which has remained the same for years. The deception intensified over the past few years. Despite the endless public promises to get the figure down, the government has done the reverse, actually easing and loosening entry requirements. We are already being softened up to expect even greater numbers next year, and no doubt the year after that. This would add an estimated 2 million to a population that has already gone up by some 8 million in less than 20 years. The issue of illegal migration across the Channel, while serious, is, I believe, essentially a distraction from this far more urgent problem. This probably accounts for the fact that senior politicians are far more comfortable concentrating on small boats. It is essential that we draw the emphasis back to the colossal figures of legal migration. I started by quoting the gross figure. We know from the statistics how this figure breaks down. Nearly 1 million were from non-EU countries. Perhaps from now on, we should start talking in gross figures only. 1 million people in and 1 million people out would, after all, be zero net migration. But what kind of a nation is that? It's a nation which is merely a landing strip or a balance sheet. There is no part of our public realm which isn't affected by immigration. The housing problem, school places, the NHS, none of these issues can be discussed seriously without talking about immigration. And yet our mainstream media conspires against doing this. Indeed, restrictions on the discussion of immigration have become tighter than even 10, 20 years ago. There are also other ways in which our country is affected, which are harder to measure. It was once said that for multiculturalism to work, there would have to be some restrictions on free speech. Now, whether or not you agree with that, surely it is no coincidence that the growth of so-called hate crime legislation and a widespread feeling that one cannot speak one's mind has intensified as migration has rocketed. We've always discussed immigration, frankly, on this channel, and we will continue to do so. But when it comes to voting, I see not one serious option on the horizon. If you still believe the Tories, then there's really no helping you. The only hope now is for an entirely new party which has ending mass migration as its main policy. It would receive huge public support. The establishment blowback would of course be ferocious. It would put Brexit in the shade. But it would be worth it, and the future of our country depends on it. Thank you.